Welcome back, everybody, to the 6 Yard Box podcast, the official podcast of the Juventus official fan club of Toronto. I'm your host, as always, here on episode 18, Joe Chirico, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, president of JOFC Toronto, John Groh, and director of the board, James Martino. Hope everybody's having a great 2022 so far. I'm not one of those people that will say Happy New Year 3 weeks later, but it has been a really, really, really positive January for us here at Juventus. A lot of great things that we're going to touch on here on today's episode on the podcast with me and the guys. Before we begin to the meat of it, a really great announcement from our club. We are back to in-person viewing parties, after a long time this Sunday. So it's a members-only event for our members. You check your inboxes and our closed Facebook group. All details are there for this Sunday, 2:45 p.m. for Dusan Vlahovic's first game in Bianconero, the big Mercato purchase. And that's definitely going to be the biggest theme starting off this show, which we've got quite a bit to cover. And of course, this is obviously the topic that everyone is waiting for. So without further ado, we've had questions. Thank you again to our members for sending in questions. We had 2 questions from one of our members by the name of Simon Cusumano. So thank you so much for your questions, Simon. First question, which leads into our transfer market topic, is for you, John. And Simon asks, how would you grade Juve's transfer window out of 10 or with a letter grade? That includes acquisitions and departures. So take it away, Mr. President.
Oh, listen, I think that we've had this discussion on our chats and stuff. I know I'm probably going to be a little more partial and subjective to the great work that Cherubini and Arrivabene have done. I'll be honest with you, I still am a little bit on the fence, but after this, he's grown on me, Mr. Arrivabene, because when he was with Ferrari, he disappointed me to great lengths. But coming over and really being forceful and asking upper management for to hold the leash and take this team and move it forward. I'm gonna grade this. Honestly, I was so ecstatic with the transfers out and bringing the players in. I'm gonna knock this up and give it a 9. I mean, nothing's ever perfect. If I could give them a 10, I would, but that'd just be, anything that ever happens going forward, we would have to think about it. But just the great work of bringing in 3 quality guys, 1 defenseman that we're going to get back. We'll have him in our roster after this season, but putting in place Dusan Vlahovic and Dennis Zakaria from Bayern Mönchengladbach, I think that he's addressed our greatest concerns at this time. Are there other is there another wish list? Did we want another midfielder? Nandez would have been beautiful, picking up another defender to add, but I'm going to give a 9. I think that Arrivabene and Cherubini have been fantastic, and I don't see a quiet summer transfer window either. I see them being very active, very early, and that's just because of the way the season is going to work next year because of the World Cup. So a 9 out of 10.
James, I'll get your thoughts on the same question. Where would you rank our transfer market for January?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with John. I'm going to go with a 9 out of 10. If you imagine at the start of this window, when you were hearing those rumors about Big Vlad making his way, you didn't believe it. However, the Juve management took a deep look at the team, took a look at the numbers. I did post an article on our closed Facebook page about the numbers of how it worked out. And basically, a lot of these dollars were tied up to Ronaldo's contract. So they were in the budget already for this year. So it makes me wonder as well, how impacted were they when Ronaldo decided to do that late transfer request at the start of this year? So the team itself basically decided we're not going to waste a full calendar year. We're going to go all in January and make sure that we get that top Champions League spot so that we can go and compete. He listened to his coach, where I think as Paradicic was more of that scout mentality and just looked at, this great players available for this cost and went in. Where, this management team talked to Allegri, figured out what they wanted, which players fit their system, which players didn't fit their system, and made those changes. If you've been watching this team for a long time this season, we've been screaming for that big center forward. We got it. We wanted that defensive midfielder. We went and got it. We know we're going to need a future defenseman for when Chiellini and Bonucci eventually retire. Guess what? They went and got it, and they did it the traditional Juve way. Went and got a young player on a smaller club, signed him early, but then basically said he's yours till the end of the year. So it's a great strategy to use. He's going to get playing time. The player's name is Dati. So he's going to be fantastic. We're going to build the future of our mid. Now, the reason why I only gave it a 9, even though we did move Kulusevski was a loan. So there's potential that he may come back if certain things aren't met with Tottenham. I believe one of it is tied to their position at the end of the year. So he may potentially come back. The one that's more scary, potentially coming back, is Sir Ramsey. So Ramsey, we spoke on multiple podcasts of our frustration with the player. This was one of those cases where he was a Bosman transfer, and it sounded good at the time to go get him, but he never fit with all three coaches' styles. So he was a round peg in a square hole, and then he had his injuries. And I think the thing that's most frustrating to everybody was he actually played more for his national team than he did for us the last calendar year. So it's a good thing that they did make the move. We know that he held out. He wanted a club with bigger stature. He had bigger offers for some of the English mid-table teams. So now he's over. Unfortunately, we still have to pay part of his salary. That's how bad his contract was. But he's over there, and if he meets certain requirements, he will be with the Rangers. So that's why I give it a 9. If we were able to just outright sell him, it would have been a perfect market for me.
Yeah, no, those are all great points. I would say, given everything that happened, the fact that we did get the players that we did and removed or sold players that were surplus or, in a manner of speaking, dead wood, I would give us a 10 out of 10, just because we historically never really had a big winter transfer window. A lot of business was done in summer, typically for Juve's track record. But this is probably one of the best transfer windows, summer or winter, in the 125-year history of this club. You're getting the joint top scorer of the league, who just turned 22 years old, outside of Mbappe and Erling Haaland. This is the guy that is most coveted around Europe and around the world. A player who has demonstrated that he can score in Serie A consistently over a number of years. Most goals ever by a Serie A player in a calendar year in 2021. He can score in a multiple of ways. Header, he can shoot free kicks, penalties with great accuracy. He can shoot from outside of the box, inside. He's a good dribbler and has good technical ability, and he can even provide some assists as well. He has a couple of assists this season. And to get a guy who not only can do it on the field, but who wants to buy into the culture. Juventus is a unique club in the sense that if you don't fit with this team, you will not succeed and you will be moved. We saw that with Aaron Ramsey. We may be seeing that with other players on this team in the summer, but we'll wait until that happens. But it's been an absolutely heck of a transfer season. And for 75 million, it kind of shows you that, yes, we do have the money. It was never really a case of the funds. We're not Barcelona. We can afford to pay the lights of our stadium, the stadium lights in our own building. The question is, how much money were Exor willing to spend? And like John mentioned, management said, listen, we have to go all in, or we really seriously risk not making the top 4. And that would set the team back a few years after all the progress that was made and all of the setback that was the Ronaldo deal, it's simply something that could not be afforded. So they opened up their pockets. They did what had to be done, and these moves were made for the future. These are young players who fit in with the team and the core. Federico Gatti is an incredible acquisition. One of my favorite YouTube channels, Tifo Football, did a sensible transfer video on Juventus and mentioned that they should be buying this player. He's statistically the best center back, or one of the best center backs in all of Italy, in all of the top 3 professional divisions. He fits the profile of the team, young, Italian. He can play with the ball with his feet. He can score goals. He can pass. He can tackle. He can dribble. Very much like a younger Bonucci. And he will eventually, the aim is to have him replace Bonucci long-term. And Chiellini's only got another year left on his contract. So this is a great buy. Zaccaria as well, a player who can cover the field and allow Locatelli to drift forward and be that impact, because Locatelli, and I mentioned this on Juventus's Twitch channel when I was on there a few weeks ago, Locatelli will be the most important player for Juventus in the next second half of the season. It's not going to be Paulo Dybala. Sorry for some of our fans and members who love the guy. I mean, he's got one foot out the door as far as I'm concerned, but Manuel Locatelli is a key player. He's going to have to assist, provide assists for Dusan Vlahovic, because right now you've only got 2 guys who can put the ball into the box. That's Alexandro and Cuadrado. It's been a very predictable system, and you need that other option. So Locatelli is going to be the guy who can impact that. And I think it's just tremendous optimism for our team. And it leads into our second question also by Simon, which I'm going to address to you, James. Simon asks, now given all the transfers, where does Juventus stand in relation to Serie A and in terms of competition with Champions League? What are the main strengths and weaknesses now of our team currently as it stands?
Okay, so I think strength wise, we have strengthened our goal scoring department, our front half there. We also have strengthened our midfield with the addition of, let me get his name right, the addition of Zaccaria. Is that how it's pronounced?
Yep.
Yeah, so he's going to help out in the back. I kind of see now Locatelli moving more into his natural position, more as a Menzola, and that should help push up and help with the just the ball distribution. A lot of the hold up play that big Vlahovic is going to provide as well. I see Locatelli popping in maybe 2-3 goals this second half, just because Big Vlad would hold the ball up. He makes a forward run, and he's got the opportunity to take a shot. So just like a Marquisio and Vidal during the first year with Conte, where Matri was that hold up player. So I see that possession happening a lot more. You're going to have that target up front. In terms of where they are versus the rest of the top 6 contenders for Champions League. Well, right now they took Fiorentina's best player, so Fiorentina will not keep up with them. You have the Romas. I don't see Roma doing much. So Atalanta, I believe Juve should at least beat Atalanta, and that's why how important that game coming up is. It's a 6-pointer. A win over Atalanta will get them into that, at least a top 4 champion spot. Milan, they had a really good start. I just don't see them having the gas to go the rest of the way. And Inter's one of those ones where, much as I hate to say it, Simone Inzaghi just basically took a well-oiled team, and all he's got to do is not screw up. And that's what they're doing. If they keep mulling along, they should wrap up the Scudetto. However, there's a reason why would they call them Pazza Inter. So Juve still have the chance. We've had this good run of consecutive wins, and with this improved team, there's no reason why this run could not continue. So kudos to the management to making us have that chance.
And John, I'll just get your thoughts as well. Where do we stand in terms of our competition in Europe? Assuming we get by Villarreal and head into the quarters against some of the other giants of European football, now that we have the team that we have.
Yeah, Joe, if you asked me, and we talked about this, if we had having the same conversation that we had before Christmas, I would have said if get by Villarreal and get to the round of 8, that is a huge accomplishment. I think that is a minimum at this point, not a maximum. I think that if you had that objective at the beginning of the year with the team that we had after the tumultuous situation with Ronaldo leaving, 24 hours before the transfer window closed, and not being able to seriously replace him, but only bringing in a guy like Keane. I think we have a great chance of, depending on who we get if we make it beyond Villarreal. So that's hoping that we do. I think that top 8 in Europe would be considered a minimum, just with the upgrades, and just I would think the stability that Allegri has brought back to this team. I know there's huge criticism and a bit of controversy towards Allegri and his style. I always associate it with a chef being given eggs, water, and flour versus a T-bone steak, a potato, and some veggies. It all depends on what he's given. So based upon what Allegri was given, and I know he's not the most dynamic coach in terms of player or strategy, but he is cerebral when it comes to reading the game and understanding the other coaches' tactics as the game progresses. So that's very few coaches have that ability to interact with the game and actually make decisions. And I think that he's made some really good decisions. And he's taken the flack. Like, he hasn't backed down for when he screwed up with formations. He accepted it with Milan, and he actually made a joke about probably going back in Tribuna and having his second coach behind the bench, because the games that we had, with Sampdoria in the Coppa Italia, and also with the game against Milan, Juve, obviously for a better 20 minutes of that Roma game. Sorry, they looked really good. But I mean, doesn't mean that we can't go deep. I think that we can do the same thing with the Coppa Italia, and I agree with James. I think I find that I'm getting the calls where people are, for pardon the expression, crapping their pants with respect to this the acquisitions and the departures, because the departures really do help with the mentality and the locker room. People don't get it. Like, the coach has to be secure inside and out. You have to manage egos, you have to manage identities, and it becomes difficult when you have players that probably just not the system, but the culture of Juventus and the strength of mind that you need to have to be. We also, I mean, hopefully most people saw the documentary All or Nothing, or is it All or Nothing? Is that what it is called? Yeah. All or Nothing on Prime, where Bonucci was very hard on Chiesa on his first little while, and also McKennie. And you've seen growth in these players. Like, they're, that's what you want. So I think we have some really good. I say that we have an opportunity to absolutely reach third. I think the Milan is a broken team. Obviously, with the looming movement of Franck Kessie, as he's not signing anything, that will ultimately affect them. Ibra is obviously showing his age now, unfortunately. But Napoli, there's also still talks that potentially Insigne may leave before the end of the season, just leave and go to Toronto and take that move, because they want him for the start of the season, and they're still in negotiation for that to happen. So who knows?
Well, that would be interesting to see. I mean, for a level, obviously for us being here in Toronto, to see Insigne come earlier than July would be interesting, and pretty much put a nail in the coffin of Napoli's chances at either Europa League or top 4 finish, if that was the case. But I think definitely with these moves, we can make the round of, the quarters, excuse me, and possibly the semifinals, depending on the opponent. We have that top 9 forward now. If everyone is healthy, there's definitely a chance. Much better than it was a week ago. Let's put it that way. In terms of Serie A, I really think if we hadn't screwed up in the beginning of the season, we'd probably win the title at this point. And it's still a possibility. It's 12 points, I think, and with 15 or 16 games left. Stranger things have happened. I don't think Inter will fall off because they're not bad enough. And they also got Robin Gosens, which was a great move for them, which completed their team. So I don't think they're bad enough to falter. But Napoli, Milan are very vulnerable. And Atalanta, how much gas do they have left in the tank? I seriously think they're going to make a run for Europa League. I hope they do. And I hope that we finish in 4th and they finish 5th, but win the Europa League so that an Italian team finally wins that competition after 23 years. And we can get 5 teams in the Champions League, which would be great for the league. But right now, there's so much optimism. We can definitely win the Coppa Italia. We have the easiest path out of the remaining teams.
Yes.
The Super Cup was unfortunate that we lost at the last minute against what at the time earlier this month in January, Inter was the better team. And it was a chess match. It was like, a 15-round boxing match, pound for pound, punch for punch. It was an error at the end and we lost. But I think the Coppa Italia is definitely achievable. Top 4 finish is very, very much a realistic goal. And Champions League, I don't think other European teams, the teams that actually know their stuff, I don't think they'd be too thrilled to be playing Juventus now, just because with all the criticism that Max Allegri had, yes, we can't score. I get it. We couldn't score the last 2 years either, but now at least we can defend. We won't be giving up 2 or 3 goals a game to crappy teams in the bottom half of the table. And that's very significant. And if we can play defense, especially now that they removed the away goals rule, starting now in the Champions League, we can cause an upset and potentially go to a run to the final. Anything can happen right now. So definitely a lot of where we stack up with our league. Like now we're the superior team. I just think in Serie A it's a little late, but in Europe it's anybody's game. So it's definitely something to be optimistic about. And it's been a long time coming for Juve since the summer. So thanks again for our member question. James, before we move on to our next topic, obviously we got to shout out the women, Juventus women. I've lost count of how many trophies they've won. They're just so dominant.
Amazing.
But give us a recap of what's been on Juventus women's side.
Yeah, so the women have finally dropped points. First time all year this year in the league. So they're still undefeated. They tied 1-1 to Fiorentina. So you're like, okay, they're on a downslide. But the other thing that happened was their number 10, Cristina. Now I'm going to butcher her name. Girelli, who's a fantastic player. She tested positive for COVID, so she's been out for the last week or so, and missed that game, and then also missed the Coppa Italia game. It's the quarterfinal game. It was played last weekend. I watched it live off my phone on Juve TV. So it was the Inter versus Juve Femine, and Inter took a late lead into the game, and the women, showing the fino alla fina spirit, came back and tied it in injury time. So it's now 1-1 going into the next leg. We're gonna have Girelli back for the next leg. So we're looking in good spot for that for the Coppa Italia as well. Another shout out for the women. Canada's own Giulia Grosso had a long. She didn't start the game, but she had a long run in that game and looked fantastic.
Yeah. Shout out to Julia, of course, being Italian Canadian as well. And that actually is a great segue to our next question that we had from our board member Enrico Iafolla. who's actually asking about, CONCACAF and Team Canada, North American soccer. Enrico asks, with McKennie's contributions this season for club and country, and seeing the potential of Canada's raw talent in their run to Qatar, why doesn't our Juventus scouting team look more in North America? So that's a great question. Thank you for that, Enrico. So first and foremost, like, wow, before we get into this question, like, what a run it's been for Team Canada, undefeated. We just closed out the most recent window, 3 of 3 wins against Honduras and El Salvador away, and a big win in Hamilton against the US. To see where we've come, and I remember those games, and I'm sure you guys have been watching Canada soccer for decades, but I do remember those, 10, 15 years ago, those dark days. Poor Dwayne De Rosario, and other players like him, and Atiba Hutchinson, who's still on the team and scored that crazy fluke goal. But how many years did that guy play on really, really bad teams with guys who, let's be honest, the kids in my local park played better than Team Canada. It was so embarrassing. But to see like how far we've come is just unbelievable. And we are going to let's stop being humble Canadians here. We're definitely going to win. I think we're going to win the group, and I think we're definitely going to make it to Qatar. It's going to be most likely another 7 points next window, and hopefully we get Alphonso Davies back quickly. But the emergence of this team is just fantastic, and yeah, we have talented players for the first time in a long time. And Weston McKennie as well. He played great in that loss against Canada. He was more in a different role, more of a creator on the left, whereas on Juventus, he's more of a ball winner, a traditional Khedira or Vidal type, but not as offensive, doesn't have the authority from the coach to move forward as much. But he's been great, and he's had a heck of a season, even though I do believe he will leave. And this is getting into kind of answering the question here, but why don't we look more in North America? And I think, John mentioned the Amazon Prime documentary, All for Nothing. The comment that went viral on McKennie talking about ranch dressing on his pizza, which is a really American thing. And if you've gone to the States, you know what I'm talking about. But I think, they laughed about it. But unfortunately, this is the thing about Italy and Italian culture. You can never, ever tell them how to cook or suggest anything about cuisine, because they're not going to have it. And the same thing goes, unfortunately, for soccer and for calcio, right? They are so we believe, because we're Italian, the masters of cuisine. We're the masters of soccer. It has to be a certain way. And I still think that the reason why maybe we're not taking North America seriously anymore as much as Germany or England, which we should be, because it's a shame and a waste that we've got so much talent now coming up in MLS and even the CPL. Why the hell are they not sending scouts here and getting guys from Romania, right? I think it's because they believe there's still that stigma on North Americans, like, oh, they're an American. What do they know about soccer? These guys they play baseball and football. I think they just don't take us seriously still. I think that's starting to change. We've seen interest in TFC's Marshall Ruddy, the young winger. I think he's 17, 18 for TFC, still playing for their academy and has made a few starts. There was interest from Juve. Are they going to sign him? I mean, it would be fantastic. I would love for him to come and learn the tactics of Italian football. And I think that's what Team Canada needs. Just imagine what these players on Team Canada, the raw talent they have, if they could get somebody who knows tactics. And no offense to John Herdman, he's a great man manager. He's built an amazing culture, because Canada is far punching above its weight and everything is going for them. But defensively, if as someone who's watched Italian soccer for so long and being so tactically inept or tactically astute, watching them play defensively, like crosses in the box, it's the only real weakness that Canada has, but it's a significant weakness. Had the US and Mexico have a real number 9, a striker, it would be a different story. I still think Canada would finish top 3, but I don't think they'd be first if if the US and Mexico were more clinical. And it starts with defensive tactics. Those need to be fixed up. Alphonso Davies in Serie A, I'd be really curious to see how they would adapt, because it's a completely different league, different culture. Whereas the other leagues are more vertical and you're more direct, this is more of a chess game, and you're just attacking and minimizing space on the field. It's like a canvas, like basically a chessboard, essentially. So that would be fascinating to see some of these players who are fast and pacey, how they would deal with not having the space to run in Serie A, always having a guy on you, or somebody, if you go off your man, there's always somebody to come in and block you so you don't go into space. That's how the teams here are designed, especially since most of them play with three at the back. But it comes down to just, I don't think they take the American and Canadian game seriously. I think that's starting to change. It certainly changed with the women. The fact that they acknowledge that Julia Grosso was a gold medal winner for Canada. She played her part in the Olympics. She's young. She has pedigree. She's of Italian descent. It made a lot of sense on the field and off the field, but we need to see that more with other players here in North America, because it's a massive market, and I think they're really missing the mark by avoiding it. And I'd like to get your thoughts on this as well. John, I'll start with you on that, on why perhaps maybe there is that stigma still here for players locally here in North America.
You know what? I'm going to have to agree with you, Joe. I think it's been an untraditional market for Europe to look at Canadians, or sorry, for Italians to look at Canadians. I have some family roots that attempted and was really good at to play in Europe, in Italy, and it was a difficult nut to crack. And we're talking back in the mid '80s, so we're talking a good chunk of time before, almost 40 years ago. I just think that what's lacking, and I think it's the mentality also of Canadians as a whole. I think we aren't as aggressive as the Americans. We don't have the financial wherewithal to bust and build our program and promote it as much. I think we're very close, but you look at players like Tajon Buchanan, obviously Jonathan David. You can look across the board to Sam Adekubi. I mean, these are guys that could actually crack a Serie A, mid to low. Like Tajon, probably. I mean, the way he was dangling the U.S. team on Sunday was absolutely insane. He had McKennie closed, and McKennie could do very little against him. He's a phenomenal player, and he can play top tier in thing at one point. I can't remember which the Guzman brother was playing with Napoli. I mean, and if you compare the Guzman against Tajon Buchanan, you can't even make that comparison. He is 3 to 4 times better of a player at his age than de Guzman was in his entire career. So if you have, a team like Napoli that now sits in third place, and I mean, as much as de Guzman was a bench player, he was still on the team. And at that time, you had Mertens in his prime. At that time, I'm almost positive Lavezzi and/or Cavani was still on the team at that time. So when you have maybe that was before him, but you have a team where Callejon was on. So if you have that player, and if people remember de Guzman, you have this guy. I take Buchanan over him. He's actually my favorite of Canadian team player. I think he's just a phenomenal, very smart player, understands his role, understands the game, makes the sacrifices. And I think, it's gonna take a player like an Alphonso Davies to come into the Italian culture and kind of change, create a hybrid understanding, saying, I'm not going to lose my identity as a Canadian, but I understand the traditions. And that's what McKennie's done. And he's gone on record, McKennie, and states that you know what, he's had to grow, and that going through the issue of the situation with the American team and his problems there that then transcended into going back to Juve. He said he had to rebuild relationships with everybody, and he was willing to do it. And look where it's come now. He's an untouchable for Allegri. I know he's taken a different route, but McKennie's an absolute superstar. And I don't see a guy like Tajon Buchanan being any less of a player than Weston McKennie. So why? Time will only tell. Hopefully, with this run of Canadian soccer results for the men, it will bring some legitimacy and credibility behind the program. And that's what's changed as well. The program, we've gotten smarter, we've gotten better, we've gotten out of the the historical garbage that was going on with the Canadian Soccer Association back in the day. So it's promising. Only the Italians will have to change their mentality. Hopefully they'll change their mind from a breakfast cafe and cornetto to maybe a McMuffin and a coffee. Who knows?
Probably not. But James, I'll get your thoughts on that too.
Okay, yeah. So I think part of the reason for it is Canada was late, even North America was late, and where we're seeing now the growth of the Canadian men's national team, it's all started because of the MLS's influence. So when the MLS came in, those clubs put their own academies on the ground, and that helped build the Canadian players. And we're also seeing it as well with some of the bigger clubs. So I do know there's a Barcelona academy in North America. Juve's got an academy in Toronto and Boston and other locations. So it's there. Could there be better talents that they should be concentrating on now? Possibly, but how many Alfonso Davis, diamond in the roughs, wingers are you going to take and convert into the world's greatest left back? One of the things that I remember when Piero came to MLS, one of the things he said was, physically, the MLS players were in tons better shape than Serie A players because of the amount of running that they did. However, they just were lacking that tactic. So if you can get that raw talent who physically can do it, and then give them that training, the possibility is there. So I do see a future in North America, and I'm pretty sure Juve's got their eyes on a few guys. But the amounts, just because of how lacking North America was in terms of development of soccer, that's why we're only seeing drips and draggles right now at this time.
Yeah, and hopefully it absolutely hit bang on there, and I'm hoping that with more players going to Europe, like such as Tajon Buchanan going to Belgium, and eventually he'll be on a big team in a year or two. Jonathan David going to go this summer, most definitely somewhere for big money. I don't think he's going for 80 to 100 million, as some of the commentators on One Soccer have speculated. Jonathan David is fantastic, but he only has 12 goals in Ligue 1. Dusan Vlahovic, 17 goals in Serie A, same age, 75 million. So 40, 50 million, yes, that's fair. I would love for him to come to Serie A, but it's probably, his game probably is much better suited in the Premier League or possibly La Liga. But the attention towards European teams, I'm hoping that this grows the followership of sports of the European leagues, Serie A in particular, because we're seeing increasing, and we've talked about this on the podcast before, on DAZN and Fubo, and where can we watch the games. I just wish, the ratings for the Canada games are huge. I just wish we had Serie A soccer on a main network so we can see these guys and expose the Canadian public, who are, even though we've been fans for decades, and our members, are 300 plus members, and we've seen that thousands of fans across the GTA love the game. We all wake up, you have hundreds of thousands of people in the GTA alone waking up every morning to watch a 7:30 Premier League game or a 9 a.m. Serie A game, or spending their Sunday afternoons at the clubhouse like we have over the last 20 years. But the mainstream is still not there, and I don't know what else it has to take for people to wake up and realize that, hey, there's a world outside of baseball in the NFL. But we'll see how that goes, because it is the greatest sport in the world. by far, and it has been for 160 years. It's about time that our country gets on board and that the media starts taking our sport seriously, because it's not the future. It was the past, present, and future. It always was. Like, there's no sport that can touch ours. It's not even close. So it's great for Team Canada that it's exposing everybody from this, and hoping for good things to come with Canada. Bringing it back to Juve, I'm just going to go over a few of the games here, get your guys' thoughts on our upcoming schedule, which is going to be the next 2 weeks, a bit of a challenge. So we've got Verona, who's not, we know in the past, like I think they beat us earlier this season. That's going to be not the easiest game, but we're at home at our first game back from the transfers from this little mini break. Then Sassuolo in the Coppa Italia, and then the big game in Bergamo against Atalanta, the 6-pointer that is a must win. Like, that has to be a win. And then the Derby della Mole at home, that should be a win next on the 18th of February. And then we get into Champions League, which we don't have enough time to get into right now, but we'll definitely get into that on next month's show. But guys, between Verona, Sassuolo, and the Coppa, and then the Atalanta game, the main one, John, how is this looking for us the next 3 games?
This off. Sorry, I put a thing. There's no, Joe, you said it. This is no give. It's a must win. They have to go all out. I think that Atalanta, although they made a couple of they bought a couple of players, or just one, I can't remember exactly, but they lost Robin Gosens. I honestly think that what you said, I think they're going to make a big push for the Europa League. I think that they're looking for big money. I think that the team is starving for money. You're going to see a decline in Atalanta unless they go out there and grab proper players to replace aging members, although still performing. Guys like Zapata, they're not getting any younger. There's hints of Muriel leaving, whatever, but it's a must win. I don't see any issues with Sassuolo. I think that that's going to be a stern game, but I don't think that's going to be a problem with regards to getting past them and moving forward to what is it? That's a semi, or that's a quarter?
That's a quarter.
Going to the semifinals, and then addressing that when that comes, the semis. But it's a must win. When we win against Sassuolo, Atalanta, and Torino, I'm going to look at those 3 games and see where the rest of the pack is, because I think there's going to be significant changes. We have the big derby between Milan and Inter this weekend as well. So that'll be intriguing to see what happens there. I find that to be, that's going to be all out war. Whether Milan has the guts and the glory to fight thing, but at that point, I think we'd actually, dare I say it, want either a tie or an Inter win just to climb closer to Milan, because we lost our opportunity with them with the tie. I don't see, there's no room for error right now. This has to be now Allegri mentally preparing, because these guys are capable soccer players, and really buying in. And I think, not as a player, as a former player, nothing great, but you always want to see an addition to support. I think mentally, psychologically, this will have obviously a positive effect on the team, and knowing that you have absolutely a daredevil up front, guy who's going to be deadly to stop. And I can't see, and if you look at Fiorentina and the number of goals Dusan Vlahovic had in the first half of the year, knowing that he has players like Locatelli, Dybala, Cuadrado, Sandro, providing, and guy like Arthur, providing balls so that you can score. I don't know. We're missing that center forward to score. Now that we have it, I could see this guy scoring 15, 16 goals in the second half of the season. No problem.
You'd
and
hope
that means a lot.
Yeah, no, but that's what we're going to need. I think, like, he has to score at least 15, 16 goals for us to get to that level. James, what are your thoughts on the next 3 and 4 games? It's a tough stretch for our guys.
Yeah, so the big 6-pointer, we talked about Atlanta, but before we even get there, we have to get our 3 points, that revenge game versus Verona. That was one of the key losses in the first half of the season. We're going to have a little bit of an advantage as Simone, I believe, is carded, so he will be suspended for that game. So Juve can get the revenge. The question is, how soon is Vlahovic going to score? Is it going to be the first game this weekend, or is it going to be dipping into Coppa Italia? I personally think he's going to get his goal very quickly, get that monkey off his back, and I say about half an hour within the first game, we should see him pop one in.
Good thoughts, James. So that pretty much wraps it up for our show. We've had a great discussion. Obviously, the mood has changed a lot if you compare it to the most recent episodes we've done. A lot of great things to be happy about. So again, for our members, check our Facebook group, check your email inbox. All the info for our watch party is happening 2:45 this Sunday. Juventus Verona, again, Vlahovic's first game, DV7 for Juve. Again, for if you guys want to reach us, we're on YouTube, Juventus Official Fan Club Toronto, social media, Juve Club TO, Juve Club Toronto, that's on Twitter, Juve Club Toronto on Instagram. And as well, follow us on our 6 Yard Box podcast account, which has all the news and updates for Juventus daily, updated by our co-host here, James. For all news and events Juventus FC related, we're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. 6 Yard Box podcast in the search bar. You'll find us there. For John, James, my name is Joe Chiraco. From all of us here at JOFC Toronto, have a great week. And as always, fino alla fine, forza Juventus.